Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now in this one we're taking another look at the R9 295X2, this time testing it with GTA 5. So we have tested this card beforehand, we had some issues with it, but while I'm waiting for different hardware to arrive, I thought why not fill some of these days with gameplay videos of various graphics cards just to see how the games that don't quite make it into the benchmarks all the time actually run. So the R9 295X2 is basically two 290Xs stuck together on a single board. Both of them are overclocked as well, so this is an absolute beast. It's very power hungry, and the last time I tested this we had a few issues, mainly because Crossfire just isn't supported anymore. But one of the games that I really wanted to test was GTA, and it didn't run, or it did run, but the MSI Afterburner was causing this horrible flickering issue, and today I managed to resolve that, so I thought we'd see how it does at 1080p, 1440p and then 4K. So the way I fixed the issue was simply by going into the River Tuner statistics server and switching the stealth mode on and choosing basically medium or high. I had to change this depending on the resolution I selected, but it did stop the overlay from flickering. Now jumping into the gameplay here, first of all at 1080p, and you'll probably notice that I've switched to the i7 4770 instead of my usual i5 because I cannot get this card to work on new motherboards. This was the newest chip I had that in combination with a motherboard would actually work. Now I'm going to look into this. I've tried updating the BIOS, switching various settings around in the motherboard BIOS as well, to no avail. So we're off to a good start at 1080p here. As you can see, both GPUs are being utilised. This percentage will change quite dramatically as to which GPU handles most of the load, and the load will increase of course as the resolution increases. So we're starting at 1080p with the very high settings. All the advanced options are off, and MSAA is also switched off as well because that is an absolute resource hog. So I'm going to make my way to the city here, or try to. Yeah, I've been playing this a lot on console recently, and as you can see, my keyboard and mouse skills have somewhat deteriorated over the past couple of weeks. Some of you who are regular viewers might argue that and just say I'm usually terrible at playing games anyway. So as you can see now, we're driving down Vinewood Boulevard, one of the most demanding areas of the game, and we've got no problems with maintaining over 60 FPS here. We're even hitting over 100 FPS a lot of the time as well. Some of this gameplay here is just, this is live, so what's happening here? I'm playing as I'm talking, hence the laughing every so often. But yeah, we're hitting over 100 FPS here. This does drop quite significantly and quite quickly too, but you can't really feel these drops. As you can see, the on-screen percentile figures are pretty good. So yeah, let's just steal this FBI looking car here. The doors come off, typical. We're still seeing over 60 FPS. The refresh rate of my monitor is actually 75. So yeah, I like to see at least 75 FPS, which could be more easily achieved with lower settings, but very high is absolutely fine, to be honest, especially if you have a 60Hz refresh rate monitor. So when this card came out, I think it was about $1,500 in the US, and it was an absolute beast, and of course it made sense when Crossfire was a big deal along with SLI, but these days you're going to struggle to find a game that actually supports either of those. Right, let's just finalise our 1080p test here. I didn't even realise I was still wanted. Okay, right. Yeah, okay, we'll pull over here and then we'll switch to 1440p from the in-game settings. So going into the graphical options here, and we're basically leaving everything on the same settings, but just switching the resolution to 1440p, which as you can see uses about 5 gigabytes of our available video memory. Now at 1440p, what I noticed is that the frame rate didn't really change in GTA. In fact, we were seeing very similar FPS throughout our gameplay testing today, even as far as the drops as well. At 1080p, we saw some drops into the 50s, and this was also an occurrence at 1440p, but just like the previous gameplay, we're seeing frame rates that climb into the 100s every so often too. Let's just charge past this police car there. Right, here we go. Okay. Oh, getting a bit fast now. The frame rate's still staying pretty steady. Driving back towards Vinewood Boulevard, of course, this is where we're going to see... What on earth happened there? I pressed the wrong button. Okay. This is where we're going to see the highest frame dips, or you think so anyway, but we're seeing around 70 to 80 frames per second a lot of the time. I think 4K is going to be more of a challenge for this card, but let's go ahead and switch to that momentarily and then see what this thing can do. GTA is what, a 2015 release on PC, so that's not long after this card actually came out, which is why it's no surprise really that GTA is handling, or the card is handling GTA just fine, I should say. But next up, it's the 2160p gameplay. Now I apologise if the gameplay here looks a bit stuttery. The cable I used to hook this up to my 4K TV was actually an HDMI 2 mini DisplayPort adapter, so we were actually stuck at 30 Hz output here. Now of course the game was running at a higher frame rate, it's just that it was outputted at 30 FPS, so the game, or the gameplay, is going to look a lot more jarring than it actually was. This felt a lot smoother in reality. Now I tried to retain the very high settings here, just as I've been doing throughout, but this actually proved a little too much for the R9 295X2. There were actually a lot more stutters. Sometimes we were dropping as low as the high 30s, which obviously is fine if you don't mind 30 FPS, but when you're going along at 60 FPS 1 minute and then all of a sudden you drop to 30 FPS, well, it's not going to feel that great. Let's just throw that there. Oh, as you can see, the frame rate dipped a bit there. So I actually found that the high settings were a much better bet for GTA 5. I'll show you the settings that I'm using here. As you can see, 3840 by 2160. All the sliders are still maxed out. MSAA is still off. Anisotropic filtering is still set at 16. And the advanced options are also disabled too. This actually meant a much better frame rate, though we weren't free from problems. Once again, the output gameplay here, or the outputted gameplay, is at 30 FPS due to the 30 Hz connection, but the game is still running at over 60 frames per second a lot of the time. Right, let's just make our way down towards the city again, or not, okay. Okay, I tried. Right, let's flip this over and head towards Vinewood Boulevard once more. So, as you're driving around the countryside or up in the Vinewood Hills here, your frame rate is going to be absolutely fine. It's only when you venture into the... I thought we were going to explode then. It's only when we venture into the city that we really do see some dips. As you can see on screen, as reflected by the frame time graph, there are some spikes, which does indicate a little bit of micro stutter here and there. When did I lose the door of the car? I didn't even notice that. Okay, right. So yeah, the R9 295X2 is still holding up pretty well in 2021 when it comes to GTA 5, which is no surprise, as I said before, really, considering the age of the game. But it's nice to know that with the latest edition of the Relive software, which this card still supports, the game is running absolutely fine even with the latest release of GTA 2. With all that said then, I'm going to leave it there. I thought I'd fill the gap between some of these hardware review videos with different cards playing various games, just so that you can get an idea of how different things run on graphics cards when they don't always make it into the benchmark videos. I thought it might just be a nice idea, but there we go. Thank you very much for watching. In the next one, perhaps we'll test the GTX 460 again in something like Red Dead, if it can even run. And yeah, if you enjoyed this one, leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see you all again very soon.